In Luke chapter 17, Jesus says to his disciples that things that cause people to sin are inevitable, but the person who causes others to sin is cursed and better off at the bottom of the sea with a millstone around his neck. Jesus also tells his disciples that they should forgive the person who sins against them, even if that person sins and repents again 7 times in one day. The disciples want more faith, but Jesus tells them that even the smallest amount of faith, the size of a mustard seed, is enough to make a huge mulberry bush get up and throw itself into the sea. He then tells them a parable about how servants who simply go about their daily business shouldn't expect to receive a thank you. This parable suggests that even the best of God's servants are still unworthy because they have only done their duty and no more. Nobody, no matter how virtuous or hardworking, can ever put God in his or her debt. Luke then reiterates the fact that Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem and proceeds to tell a story about Jesus healing 10 lepers, with only the Samaritan leper coming back to thank him. In this way, Luke again places the hated Samaritans in a favorable light. The Pharisees want to know when the kingdom of God will come, so Jesus tells them that the kingdom isn't something that you need to wait for or go out looking for. The kingdom is happening right here in front of you. Jesus then makes a distinction between the kingdom of God and the day of the Son of Man, which is what the Pharisees were actually interested in. He tells his disciples that one day they will long to see the day of the Son of Man, but it won't be for them to see. They're not going to get to see the lightning show of the future, but instead will get to see the Son of Man suffering and rejected in the present. He says that the day of the Son of Man will be a terrible day of judgment, just like Noah's flood and Sodom's destruction. No one should stick around and watch, like Lot's wife did. They should run for their lives. Jesus then tells a parable about an atheistic and apathetic judge who is repeatedly approached by a poor widow seeking justice. Initially rejecting her demands, he eventually honors her request so he will not be worn out by her persistence. This parable demonstrates the importance of persistence in prayer, never giving up. But Jesus ends the story with a question, wondering if when he comes back, will he find anyone who still has any faith? Jesus then contrasts a Pharisee, obsessed by his own virtue, with a tax collector who humbly asks God for mercy. The Pharisee goes above and beyond, fasting more often than was required, and giving a tithe on all he receives, even in cases where the religious rules didn't require it. Confident in his religiosity, the Pharisee asks God for nothing, and thus receives nothing. The parable does not condemn the tax collector's questionable occupation, but describes him as one who recognizes his state of unworthiness before God, and confesses his need for reconciliation. Coming to God in humility, he receives the mercy and reconciliation he asks for. We then hear how Jesus allows parents to bring their children to him to be blessed, as well as a teaching about how hard it is for those who trust in riches to enter the kingdom of heaven. Jesus then predicts his death the 3rd time, and after this he heals a blind beggar.